Hi everyone, it's Fred again from Notes of a Nomad, video number 249. Today I want to share with you my trip from Canada to Australia. So I left early on Tuesday morning, arriving here on Thursday afternoon, noting that we crossed the date line. So it wasn't from, you know, 2 full days. It was really probably just over 1.5 days. Now, early in the morning, I had loaded up Charlie, if you can see him in the parking lot of Ladysmith Marina. He's in the edge there. And the sun had risen early in the morning. And Ken, who owns the Sea Holly, arrived around 8:30, and I left about quarter to 9 to um, go to Victoria area where I met Bill. Bill is a good Toastmaster friend of mine who looked after Charlie last year when I was away. So he suggested I come to his house, pick him up, drive to the airport, and then he'd drive Charlie back to his place and look after Charlie until I get back next year. So that worked out very well. I then spent a couple hours at the airport in Victoria, where I was fortunate enough to have a Tim Hortons lunch. I had a Parmesan chicken pizza and a bacon, egg, lettuce, tomato bagel. And I cost me $1.05. The reason is I had a voucher for $15 from Air Canada because my flight to Romania early this year had been canceled, and they gave me a couple vouchers that I could use at airport restaurants, and I did so this time. So that was the main food I bought, and probably the only food I bought during the trip. I had some snacks with me that I utilized during the flights because there was no food given to you automatically on the flight. You could purchase items, but it's airplane food and it's not that great. And I prefer not to pay extra money for it if I can avoid it, which I didn't. So the small plane got me to Vancouver. And on that plane, I arrived around 3 p.m. And my flight was leaving Vancouver, also on a WestJet, but that was a big Boeing. And that took over 6 hours, 6.5 hours to Honolulu. Now, I guess the highlight of that flight was the young child sitting in the seats opposite me in the same row. And he was a cute little boy and really vibrant as he was getting on the plane, but he didn't get very happy once the plane took off. I suspect it was the air pressure in his ears because he was screaming. Oh man, did he have a set of lungs on him? And he was not a happy camper. I wanted to say something to the parents about the air pressure. Maybe is this the first time have you ever taken your child on an airplane? But I kept my mouth shut because they seemed to be well prepared. They had really looked done what was appropriate because I looked up after I got to Australia about could it be the child's air pressure that caused this youngster to scream so much? And it looks like that could have been the cause, but they seem to be well prepared. So they did their best, uh, and the child did his best in screaming quite remarkably loud for quite a long time as the plane went up and also in its descent. So it probably was air pressure. So that was the highlight of getting to Honolulu. Now, I arrived at Honolulu late at night, almost midnight. And what happened was the terminals were closed. Now, my plane was leaving early in the morning at 8 o'clock and meant I had to be at the airport around 6 a.m. So I didn't leave the airport. I found a place to sleep. Now, all of the terminals were really closed. You couldn't get into the terminals. So I found a ramp that from, where the cars drop off the passengers on to the terminal. And I found somebody was sleeping at the end where the gate was closed, and I slept on the side for a couple hours there, 4 hours. Found that was worked. I do have a sleeping bag with me and a couple thick clothes that I can put under my hips so that it's not too hard to sleep. So I had about 4 hours sleep and got up early in the morning and got into the terminal. And these are some pictures. The terminal is sort of open plan. There's no windows here. This is just, you can see the palm trees in Honolulu and the breeze coming through. This is Terminal 2 in the airport in Honolulu. So that's what it looked like on the flight, waiting for the flight. We took off on a very inexpensive airline called Jetstar, which I believe is run by Qantas Airlines, the Australian airline. But of course, there's no food there. But it's 11 and a half hour flight all the way from Honolulu to Melbourne Airport. A very pleasant flight, very nice. Pretty boring because they don't have screens or anything. Not that I normally watch that anyway. But I managed to read Walter Isaacson's book on Elon Musk. I have read it previously, but it's been about a year or so. So I read the first 250 pages, and that really reminded me of the tough life he had prior to coming to United States. He had lived until he was about 18, been bullied at school. His father was very, very difficult on him. And he certainly didn't have much money. I think he arrived in Canada because his mother had been born in Canada. So he was entitled to live in Canada when he was 18, and he had a few $1,000s in his pocket. Worked on a farm with his family, relatives in Saskatchewan, worked in a very, very difficult job in a lumber mill in British Columbia, and then ended up in university in Queen's University in Ontario, which is the same university my daughter got her PhD in. My daughter in California, who's a university professor, also went to Queen's. He then went to Pennsylvania, transferred to University of Pennsylvania and got a couple degrees in physics, and I think it was business. And then, life goes on, and we know a lot now about Elon Musk. But it really, a lot of people say, oh, his life was easy. His life, particularly his younger life, was not easy. And Walter Isaacson really, I think, does a lot of explaining and about how difficult Elon Musk had when he was young. So I arrived at the airport in Melbourne, local time on Thursday because we crossed the date line. So sort of lost the day, so to speak. So it would really be still Wednesday in Canada when I arrived around 4:30 in the afternoon. Now, there's no one who could collect me from the airport, which often happens. So I looked on a very interesting app on the phone, on the smartphone called Rome to Rio, and it explained to me I could take a sky bus from the airport to downtown Melbourne, and that cost me $23. That went very well. And right next to the terminal where the sky bus stopped was the train station, and for $10.15, I think it was something like that, I got a card that would let me take the train from that particular train station to Cheltenham, which is in southern Melbourne, near where my daughter lives. It was 2 kilometers walk from the train station to my daughter's house. So I arrived around just after 7 o'clock on Thursday. So that's been the highlights of my trip. And I now am ensconced in the pool house next to my daughter's house and next to her pool. And she will be back from her trip, where her and her husband are away until Sunday, this coming Sunday. They've been traveling, I believe, around Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. So it'll be interesting to see them and hear about their trip. So with that, I will say adios, au revoir, wishing you, your family, and friends lots of love and laughter. Until next time, hope everything is going well with you, and bye for now from Fred and Notes of a Nomad.